Carney has drawn a little bit of criticism about his choices to invite two guests in particular. First being the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman. Saudi Arabia has a very poor human rights record, still lingering controversy over the murder of a Washington Post journalist in Istanbul back in 2018 that generally believed to be orchestrated by the Saudi regime. And then there is the decision, again, by Carney to invite as a guest, of an add-on to this group, the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi. This is at a time that the RCMP is actively investigating the role of the Modi government in the murder of a Sikh activist in British Columbia back in 2023. The Prime Minister at the time, Justin Trudeau, clearly blamed the Modi government, saying it was agents of their government that actually executed this man, Mr. Nijjar, Hardeep Singh Nijjar. India denies that, but this is sort of cast a pall on the relationship between the two countries. But Modi will be attending nevertheless. The RCMP says they're making progress dealing with Indian authorities as they conduct their investigation. And Carney says it's important that the fifth largest economy be present at the G7. But it's managing one other guest that is really going to be the challenge for Carney as G7 host, and that, of course, is Donald Trump. No question about whether he would be invited or not. He's a member of the G7, the U.S., so he's going to be here automatically. But remember the last time Trump came to Canada for a G7 back in 2018 when Trudeau was the host of the event in Charlevoix, Quebec. Trump left in a huff. He was angry, felt singled out by the other leaders, especially as they were trying to get resolutions on climate change. As he left on Air Force One, headed to Asia, Trump was tweeting angrily about Justin Trudeau, calling him dishonest and weak. So that didn't go very well. Mark Carney would very much like to avoid a repeat of that kind of scenario, particularly now when Canada is in deep negotiations. We think they're getting very close to an agreement to end or at least abate to a certain extent these tariffs that Trump has imposed on Canada. Sort of the 25%, we call them the fentanyl tariffs that was first imposed on all goods. That's been carved out for NAFTA trade, for USMCA, CUSMA compliant trade. But there's still the tariffs in the auto sector, as well as the really devastating one that is currently the 50% tariff on Canadian-made steel and aluminum. So Carney wants those talks to continue. In fact, we'll likely have some FaceTime with Trump over the next couple of days when the leaders are in Kananaskis. So he doesn't want to upset the apple cart, yet at the same time, all the other leaders are going to want to talk to Trump about his decision to impose tariffs, not just on Canada and on Mexico, but on the rest of the world. This is going to be kind of the top issue on the agenda. So Carney has decided that the group will not issue a traditional written document called a communique. Generally, at these big summits of world leaders, whether it's the G7, the G20, the APEC summit, the ASEAN summit, the group all kind of collectively agrees to release a document, usually 3 or 4 pages long, that sort of sets out everything they discussed in the meetings and everything, crucially, that they all agreed on. There's lots of negotiation back and forth because not everybody's on the same page on certain issues. In fact, when Trump left Charlevoix, one of the things he was angry about, and he said he was not going to sign on to the communique at that occasion because he didn't like the language about climate, calling for further action on climate change. So Carney has decided, instead of doing that this time, after the Kananaskis meeting, they're going to instead put out single issue statements of agreement. So it works. The G7 always works on kind of a consensus basis. So they'll put out documents stating their positions and describing their discussions on issues where there is accord, where they are all agreed. And this, I think the thinking is, will not single out Trump, will not put him in a position where he's the guy who says no to the final communique. They can do it sort of issue by issue. Maybe there's some things the Americans don't want to sign on to, but everybody else does. The goal here, Faiza, is to make this summit calm, possibly even a little bit boring. At the same time, we know that there's going to be lots of discussion about what's happening, what Brandon and you were speaking about earlier, the situation with Israel's attack on Iran overnight. That's going to be a major issue, as well as the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, and also the situation in Gaza. So lots of security things, but really it's going to be trade front and center. That's the main topic of conversation. And Carney really wants to avoid antagonizing Trump at a crucial time for Canada-U.S. relations while these trade negotiations are going on.